All right, I have 1 minute after, so we can go ahead and maybe start off with some introductions. We're just helping a few more people get in. So hopefully you're able to see and hear me okay. Today we're going to be taking a look at Cloud CMA. I'm also going to show you some of the new exciting interactive features, things that agents have wanted for a long time that make doing a CMA and certainly presenting a CMA easier than ever. So first and foremost, I want to introduce myself. My name is Colleen DeLang. I am the Director of Education here at My Real Source. But the reason I teach this class is one, it's one of my favorite products. And two, I've also been a licensed realtor myself. I use this, matter of fact, I am going to show you a property I just closed up yesterday, how I did the exact CMA, and those really important pieces that we're going to show you how to pull in from different sources that certainly help when you're trying to paint an accurate picture for the seller of what their home is worth, how long is it going to take to sell, what do you need to know, what do appraisers use. We're going to throw in a lot of that good stuff. So as I mentioned, we've got a few more people logging in, and good to see that you made it, Chester and Kathy. I know I had just sent out the link, so I'm glad to see that you're here. Got about 4 more people just getting logged into the audio. But I am blessed because I actually have 2 of my counterparts that are going to be helping me answer questions today. We actually had over 100 people register for this class today. And so Brian, I call him the wizard. He's the one who builds a lot of this great stuff. He builds the integration into great programs like Cloud CMA and into Paragon. He's actually going to be behind the scenes helping answer questions that you may have. And then I'm also blessed. I know she was having a little bit of a difficulty getting in. I am blessed because Taylor, who does a lot of our classes, we do a lot of our classes together. Oh, looks like she just got in. Let me move her over here. All right. All right, I think that's everybody. I think we got everybody in now. But both Brian and Taylor are going to be behind the scenes, and they're going to be answering questions. So how this works is I would love to be standing in front of you and answer all your questions that way. But obviously, since we're not in person, the next best thing is we still want you to submit your questions. We don't want you to hold them all to the end because as an agent, I'm going to be honest, I forget them all by the time I get to the end, what I was going to ask. So if you open up your GoToWebinar panel, you're going to find a questions box. If you simply type in your question, either Taylor or Brian will type a response back to you. If it's a really good question, or maybe we're at that exact point, they'll also ask the question. They'll say, hey, can you go over that again? Or hey, and then we can actually go through that process again. So they're being kind enough to answer those questions behind the scenes. So feel free at any time in our class today, feel free to jump into that questions box and ask questions. So seeing a lot of familiar names popping in. Great to see you, Tom Steen. Got a lot of familiar names popping in, so good to see everybody. All right, so with that, let's get started. So I would like to teach this class backwards. I know it's kind of odd, but as an agent, I sit in on a lot of webinars. Matter of fact, I just finished one a couple of minutes ago, and I kind of like to see what the finished product looks like first. Because let's face it, if you don't really like the finished product, learning about it really isn't going to help you, right? So I kind of like to show you the finished product first and all of the different ideas that I've incorporated over the years. And then if you like it, I'm going to take you step by step exactly from A to Z on how to build it that way. Now, really, when you're doing a CMA, and if you're brand new, it stands for Comparative Market Analysis. It's really just trying to tell that seller in an impressive way that stands out, especially when you're maybe going up against other agents. It's showing that seller what their home is going to be worth. But let's face it, the last thing we want to do is use some complicated software or process to do that. My average CMA now takes me between 7 and 9 minutes, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer if you're doing acreage or you're trying to put together valuations, things like that. For the average CMA really doesn't take very long. And the nice thing is, really the hardest part was just going into the MLS and entering the information so you're comparing apples to apples. Obviously, if you have 1,000 square foot brick ranch, you're not going to compare it to a 5,000 two-story or 5,000 square feet two-story or a colonial home that's on the water, right? If yours isn't, you want to compare apples to apples. And so that's what we're going to show you step by step. But with that, kind of where I want to start today is, and I'm going to turn off my fuzzy hair so that you can just actually see the screen. Um, where we want to start today is again that finished product. What does it look like when you create it? So I'm just going to show you one. We actually just closed on this property yesterday, I'm happy to say, but I'm going to actually walk you through that CMA and some of the pieces that I brought in that really help the seller understand what was going on in their marketplace. So, for instance, for the CMA, you can choose exactly what you want to be part of it. You can set up a template again. So once you pick your listings and you hit what I'm going to show you is the easy button, you can pull all those listings into this beautiful format. You can also do a live interactive presentation. There's even a slideshow. I'm going to show you all of that today. But I like how clean and easy it is for the seller to really understand. But sometimes you also want to show them what's going on in their market. So I'm going to show you some ways that you can use other products that you get as a My Real Source member and how you can pull in those pieces to really give that seller a comprehensive view of what's happening in their market. Meaning, what is the inventory? We all know that it's a low inventory market, but how far down is it? Is it 50%? Is it 30% in their market? How do you show those things? And how do you do it easily? That's the name of the game, right? So in this case, when I sat with this seller, the first thing is I like to handle objections when I'm going through my CMA. So obviously the first thing is your cover. You can pull in a photo of the home, even walking up to it. I actually have a tablet, and if I haven't got a picture of the home, or if I can't find one maybe in tax records, I will actually just snap a picture on my way walking up to the front door. I can, with one click, include it as that front cover shot. I'm going to show you how to do all that today. But when I walk up, I want it to look like I took a great deal of time looking at all the information on their home. And of course, a great photo really helps impress the seller. Now, if you don't have a photo, or maybe it's not the prettiest house on the outside, I just did a few of those lately. In that case, you can always just leave that blank and it will put a Google overhead street view, and it will, if it can't even find that, it will actually just use a map. So the idea is really, it looks a lot nicer if you take the time to add that photo. But if you don't have a photo, don't worry, it's still going to create a great looking cover. Now I've gone in and I've actually set up my template, but I'm going to be honest, I'm kind of lazy, so I don't want to do any extra work. What I did is I simply went to my company website and I pasted this into my company page. And so now every time I start a CMA, this part is automatically done for me. I don't have to do anything. It's going to tell that seller all about my company. You can customize your contact me page. I just have my address on there, and it took me over 10 years to have a baby, so he's going to be on there forever, I decided. But from here, I also want to include things that are going to show the homeowner that I've really done my homework. Like in this case, I want to make sure that I'm pulling in things like the BS&A record, things like Realist. Now, on this call, we've got quite a diverse crowd. We have many in from partnering MLSs that we work with. So some of these features that we're going to kind of cover very quickly, they might be called something else in your area. You may be pulling stats from different places. So I just want to kind of point that out. There are all different MLSs that we partner with. So if you have a question about something you're seeing, I'm going to give you some contact information after our class, and you can always reach out to me and I can let you know a little bit more about that product if you're not familiar with it. Okay, so the first one that you're looking at is Realist. Realist is where I'm going to go in and I'm going to show that homeowner all the details where I pulled them from. Now, I like Realist because it's a combination source. I mean, it's pulling some information directly from the municipality, so directly from the assessor information, and other information's coming in from the MLS. I always pull it from the actual municipality record and realist, and I'll tell you why. It saved me some heartache a few times. What happens is sometimes you will notice a discrepancy, if you will. And let me explain what I'll give you a good case in point. I went on a listing appointment, and in the realist record, it said that the MLS said it was a two-story home. However, when I pulled, and the tax record said it was a one-story home, when I pulled up, I could clearly see that it was a two-story home. So why was there this difference? So when I started talking to the homeowner, he explained that he hadn't lived there very long, and he owned a dormer company where they build like little dormer rooms, and he had actually put a dormer on his own home, which is great. But that led me to question number two. Did you pull a permit? To which his answer was no. So here's our first question. So now we see that in the record, there is a discrepancy, and it just allows us to ask those questions. So where I can tell you where we started, we actually started with a trip to the city together. So how it works is having that information in front of you as you're presenting your CMA simply shows the homeowner where you got all of the details. I also like to always have this in here because sometimes they'll say, I think that square footage is wrong. Or, we added on a hallway and I don't know if that's reflected here, something like that. So I want to show them the information that I pulled just in case as we're reviewing it, we find that there is a discrepancy. We can kind of go through that together. This, of course, is also going to show things like their lot size, if they're built on let's say if they're built on a slab or a basement, or if they're if they have a two-car garage, all of that is going to be reflected here. So it's a super great place to actually start. It's going to show you things like your square footage. So if you haven't been to the home, this is really where I want to start doing my research, right? I want to start pulling all that information about the property. Most municipalities now are also online. So as we go through our BSNA record, you're going to get even more information. Now, one of the things that I commonly get asked is, well, Colleen, if you have realist in there, do you need the BSNA information, or do you need the assessor's information or the municipality information? And the answer is, I really believe you should always have both. Because there is information that is unique in each one of these items. So as you can see right here on the realist report, many times if they refi, if they just recently purchased their home, we know we're in a market where they probably paid more for it. Let's say that you also noticed they had just done a refi on it. Well, these are things you want to know ahead of time, right? Because if they're upside down in their home and they are turning around, let's say, and it's a year later and they're going to sell it, you're going to be able to need to net them out, and you're going to need to be able to have those conversations. So when I'm looking at this, I can see that, yes, there was a refi that was done. I can see when they purchased it. I can see the history here. This will also show you if it went into foreclosure. And sometimes these are really important facts as you're trying to pull together the pieces or basically paint the picture of what you need to know in order to really help the homeowners. Because I think all of us know that there are times that, especially if a seller may have had some financial, maybe they lost a job or they're having some financial trouble, sometimes they're not always so forthcoming with that information, unfortunately. And so this is a great way to start doing your homework. Again, the lot size is here, and it also has a map. But I also like to check the BSNA information. I'm going to show you how I got all of this, so don't worry. The BSNA information is the trusted source. It's the actual municipality record. I like this because now most areas are showing things like there happened to be on this home an unpaid water bill. It showed up in the BSNA record, and I was able to actually sit down and say, okay, were you aware that you have kind of a large unpaid water bill? Assessments are another great item that appear in BSNA. So if, let's say that they just got an assessment for $3,000 for the sidewalk to be replaced, these are all things you need to know, right? Because when you're doing that net out, we need to be able to have those conversations with the seller because they don't always understand how this works. This is also where you can get that accurate lot size. Again, if it's on a basement, and a lot of details as to when it was sold, kind of like you saw in the others. But again, sometimes you'll find discrepancies Hopefully you don't, but if you do, a discrepancy is simply something you want to bring up with that seller and ask more questions. It's going to show you things like when the home was built, what the taxes are on the home. So much of that is covered. And again, if you see in the realist record, sometimes you'll see an MLS says it's 1,000 square feet, but then the assessor might say it's 900 square feet. So those are those questions that we can bring up at the time of listing. And again, I'm going to show you how to do all this, so don't worry. The next thing I like to show them is what is going on in the market. So if you're taking a listing, it's more than just based on just their house, right? I mean, what are your market conditions? We know for certain that it is a seller's market, but how do you explain that in a super easy way? By the way, the graph that you're looking at right now was literally 2 clicks to create. So I'm going to actually show you exactly how to do that. Right inside Paragon, we have a great resource called Market Stats. This happens to be the fast stats portion, but literally by clicking on the city name, I was able to create this easy graph. But let's kind of break it down. When I'm sitting with a seller and we're looking at this, what this is this is last March. And by the way, this is always going to be a rolling 30 days behind, right? Because you have all the stats for that number. So when I sat with her to list this home, it was end of April. And so we looked at the stats for March. So March of 2023 versus March of this year. So what does this really tell us in a nutshell? Well, right here, we can see the important one, inventory of homes for sale. We slide across here, I can see that, wow, we're down almost 43% from last year. By the way, there wasn't that much on the market last year, if you know what I mean. So now we're down 43%. And so let's take a look. What did that do to our average sales price? I mean, we're seeing some crazy things in these markets today, right? But our average sales price last year in Clinton Township was 271. And this year, it's 321. Again, that is the average. There's also median. It's going to show you days on market, days to close. But what we can see is because we're down almost 43%, it's driven up our sales price about what would that be? About 50 something thousand dollars. And we're looking at almost a 20% increase in the average sales price. So if you're going to give them a price range, this is going to help that seller know maybe why you're putting them on the higher end of that price range. It's a really easy graph that, again, took me literally, I'm going to show you how to do it. It literally took me 2 clicks to create this graph, and then I just inserted it in my CMA. So that's really the key, is bringing in these outside pieces to help educate the seller to know really where they should be in their price, how long they should expect it to close, what are the terms that are closing in their neighborhood. That all has a significant impact on educating the seller. If they are a condo owner, right down here, it's going to break out those condos separately. So really easy to explain when you can see it in a nice, easy to read graph. All right, so when I was looking for comparables, when I put my CMA together, I literally am going to show you how in Paragon to go in and use what appraisers are going to do to create a apples to apples scenario. I'm going to show you some of the tricks that the appraisers use, like what is the square footage rule, things like that. But then it's going to give me a map of where I found those listings. Now, one of the new features I'm going to show you today in the live interactive features is an interactive map that you can literally click on something. And I love this, and I'll tell you why. Many times you are sitting at a seller's kitchen table, and that seller says, well, Colleen, I see your comps right here, but Joe Fumagalli, who's over on the corner over there, he closed yesterday, and he said he got more for his house. Okay, now, so a couple things could happen. One, you could have done your CMA 2 days ago, right? Getting all ready, and you didn't have his comp yet because it hadn't closed yet. Two, Joe Fumagalli could have a 5,000 square foot colonial, and you could be sitting in a 1,000 square foot ranch, so you wouldn't know that. But how do you show that to that seller? So really, what I'm going to show you today is an interactive way that you can actually be in your presentation and still look at a home that they might have just sprung on you. or maybe a comp that you do think you would want to use. And so it's a really, really cool new tool. So I'm excited to show it to you. But this right now, these are the three comparables that I used for this particular home. I'm happy to say we got way over asking. I know, not shocking these days, but it was really nice to close it up and the homeowners were so happy. But as we go through these comparables, another thing I really like is you have the choice of how many of the photos you want to show. I love to include all the photos unless I'm going to print this out. I generally will present this on my laptop or I will do the interactive view. If I'm going to print it, I probably don't want to print 100 because remember, you can have 99 photos in the MLS. I probably don't want to have to print all of those. So if you are going to be, excuse me, if you're going to be displaying it right on your laptop like I am, or maybe you're following up with an email to them with all of the details, I would recommend including all the photos. But however, if you are going to print it out, you can also select maybe I just want to show the first one or the first 12 or I'd like to show all of them. I'm going to show you how to display that as well. I like to have all of the photos, at least for me as the agent, because you know what they're going to ask. Did Joe Fumagalli on the corner over there, did he actually have a finished basement? Because, you know, I have a finished basement and that should be worth more, right? So you want to be able to go to those photos and you want to be able to quickly pull them up. And now with that new interactive map that I'm going to show you, you can actually do that on the fly, even if it was a comp maybe you wouldn't have originally selected. All right, it's just kind of going through there. So this is another comp. Again, it's going to show what it was listed for, square footage, the main key points. There are different types of templates that you can show these comparables in. I prefer they call it photo with max data because I like to have as much data as I can from the MLS for them to see. And again, including all of those interior photos, I think are really, really important. By the way, I just got a call from this listing agent, and this house just went back onto the market today. So it was very interesting. So we were kind of watching this home when I was doing my CMA. We were watching to see if it would close, and unfortunately, the buyer couldn't get financed, so it went back on the home today, or back on the market today. And she just reached out to me before this. So going through these two, this is one of those times that you can have those conversations too, when they're asking about, you know, well, my home is way nicer and you're going through. Sometimes this is a gentle way to point out that maybe a home was a little bit more updated or maybe had a few more features. And you can even put notes on your CMA. And I love that because I was kind of that old-fashioned agent that always had the post-it notes all over, you know, like, no, this only had a one-car garage, not a three-car garage, or this one had an extra bathroom, or, you know, this one had more square footage or larger lot size. You can do that same thing in your CMA now right under the notes category. And we're going to look at that too. All right. I love to also include the sold property analysis. This shows you that right now, so this house is about a mile north of Hall Road in Clinton Township, if you know that area. And this shows that right now, homes in that area are selling for 105% of the list price. Yes, you heard me right. 105% of the list price. And on average, they are taking 13 days on the market to go pending. I did a CMA this morning for some family out in Rose City where it's a much different story. They're only getting 89% of what they're listed for, and it's taking 70 days to close on average. So being able to have these conversations, because every area is different right now, and some of them are wildly different. Like I was totally shocked when I was pulling these numbers today. So being able to go through it and do it easily and quickly so that you can provide it right out to your clients and show them what they can expect. So I love the way this breaks it down. It's very easy to understand. It also will show you price per square foot because obviously we know that is one of the main keys. So if you have, if this home is 1,500 square feet or whatever it happened to be, I can take that $230 per square foot, multiply it by the square footage of that home, and I should come out with that appropriate number. So it's a really easy way to show the homeowner how you got these numbers and why you may, again, using the graphs and using some of the additional detail of why you may be pricing it on the higher end of that price range in this market. Again, kind of breaking down square foot. This is something that I created. This, you don't have to do this. This was just one of those things that kind of old school, I learned from Floyd Wickman, and he said, Colleen, if you're going to be sitting at somebody's table, probably most people don't even know who Floyd Wickman is, but he was a big real estate coach in the 80s. He was really funny, much like Dave Ramsey and some of the other people that you see today. But he was just a great real estate coach. And one of the things that he always said was, if you're going to be sitting at someone's kitchen table, you better be ready to handle the objections before they come up. And that gives you more control handling those objections. And I thought, wow, that really kind of stuck with me, because when we're sitting at someone's kitchen table, we often hear the same objections over and over, or the same questions over and over. So one of the things that you hear is the number one question they ask, Colleen, you going to put my house on Zillow? I'm going to be on Zillow, right? I'm going to be on Realtor.com. How are you going to advertise my home? Same thing. So what I decided to do was kind of create this little schematic that says my brokerage happens to syndicate to 400 different sites. So I wanted to put that right in my presentation. We're going to get you on over 400 sites. Here's some of the top logos of ones that you may recognize. And of course, Realtor.com, Zillow right there, Yahoo Real Estate. So that with one look, I've now handled that objection. They don't even have to ask that question. I've already answered it for them. And that, I think, gives you more control, especially when some of the objections today that we face are harder. So that, in a nutshell, was the entire CMA that I created. If you liked that and you think, okay, I think I like it, I want to go forward, let me show you how to do that step by step. So the hardest part of your CMA is just going in and creating a search to find the same criteria that has already closed. So let's do that. So we're going to go into Paragon. And the first thing that we want to do is, when we get started, I always like to go in and find out, has this property been listed before? Because it's really important. If they just bought it last year, you're going to need to know what they paid for it, right? So the first thing I want to do is I want to go in, and I generally do this in the power search. I'll type in the address and it will show me. And if I see that it's in there, 5 or 6 times, I can click on this where it says listings 1 right here, and it'll show me all of those records. So if there's 5 records there, it's going to say listings 5. You're going to click on it. It's going to open up all those records. And sometimes you can really see a very conclusive story, like that maybe it went into foreclosure. They bought it, really inexpensive. They fixed it up. They sold it a couple years later. A lot of times you can actually track the history of that property and see it very clearly. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to click on that property. I can see that it has been listed. But one of the other things you want to do is, now we want to start doing our homework. And as I mentioned, the real way to start your homework, especially if you've not been to this home before, is you want to pull the tax information. You want to pull the BS&A record. You want to pull the realist record, because you want to incorporate those in your CMA. So to do that, there are 2, I call them, they're kind of like colorful little buttons. Brian calls them quick action links, but he's sort of the one who builds all these great integrations in here. And what it allows us to do is go directly into another program for this specific property. So instead of me logging out of Paragon, logging into Realist, now having to type all that property information into the Realist dashboard and wait for it to load, no, I don't want to have to do that. I want to be able to simply click on this red button, which is the Realist property report, click on that, and it's going to take me right into that Realist record. So instead of, again, going to another program, having to type in all that property information, you can see how quick and easy it was, even though we're live streaming, which usually makes it a little bit slower, a few seconds at least. You can quickly pull this record up. And then what I generally do is, first I'll go in and I'll review it. I can see all the property detail, again, the square footage, all of that information that I'm going to need to know, the tax information, when it was built, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms. And then what I usually do is I will go right up to this print record and I will print it as a PDF. Or again, you can email it to yourself if you're going to be doing this later on. But the idea is, I want to make sure that I save this record because I want to pull it into my CMA. All right, so that's where you get the Realist record. If it has never been listed before, there are right up here at the top, there is the tax icon. If you click on taxes, you can also go into Realist and you can search for it. So if it hasn't ever been listed before, this is a nice, easy option. You click on Realist, you type in the address under New Dashboard, pops right up for you, and you can save it that way. I just like to always find if it has been listed, because it's a little easier. It's going to give you everything you need in a quick glance. The other thing I want to do is I want to pull that BS&A record. Now, I just want to say that there are some people, from the northern part of the state on the call, a few names that I recognize. Not all municipalities are in BS&A yet. I know they're trying to mandate it so that there's a certain time frame that they do have to have all their records online, and sometimes it's even called something different. The next question I have for Brian, Brian, I have looked and looked. I cannot find what BS&A stands for. I swear, I think I have looked, I've Googled it, I've looked through other resources, and I really cannot figure out what BS&A stands for, but it basically is the assessor's record, which is online. If I'm looking for that report, I'm going to go to what looks like this little trash can icon, and I apologize, it's not supposed to be a trash can. It's supposed to be a government pillar. Unfortunately, the government pillar, when Brian smushed it onto that little button, it looks a little more like a trash can to me than a government pillar, but as long as it does the same thing, right? So if you are with certain MLSs, and I know here at my Rural Source, I think we have quite a few counties that you can actually go in, and if there is a fee, in some cases it's waived, but I'm going to tell you it is different for all the vendor MLSs or MLS partners that we have. Some of them provide that, some of them do not. So I'm going to kind of breeze over that. If you are a My Rural Source member, and let's say it is a county that we provide, then when you go in here, if you normally pay that $6 fee, as a My Rural Source member, we actually waive that, and we actually get that bill on your behalf. So it kind of works out to be cool benefits. I know eCar's got some great incentives that they offer through that as well. But basically, when you click on this little icon that you're looking at, it's going to take you directly again into that municipality record. So again, I couldn't figure out what BS&A is, but maybe Brian one day will enlighten me. But basically, it is the assessor's record. And what we do here that's a little bit different at My Rural Source for our MLS partners and for us, we use the actual live server for BS&A. And what that means is there are other MLSs who provide a service like this, but it's done in a feed. And that means it takes some time for that information to be updated. However, what we do is we actually touch that live server. And why that's so important is if you are an agent, and let's say you just got a call from the title company, you're supposed to close. The title company just realized they owe $9,000 in back taxes, and they need to have those paid before they're willing to close it. If they go down to the assessor's office and pay it, and that assessor hits save, you're going to be able to generate that receipt or that record right from the live BS&A server. So it does some really cool things. As I mentioned, one of the other advantages now, and I just had this happen, is the utility bills are actually posted. Water obviously stays with the property. So if you have, let's say that you're representing the buyer, and you want to make sure that all the water is caught up. I mean, water is a lot more expensive than it used to be. I don't know if anybody's noticed that, but it's not uncommon, especially if a home is vacant. You might move into a $700 or $800 water bill, and remember that stays with the property. So these are things you want to take a look at. So I can go into the utility bill, and I can see, has it been paid? We actually did a final water read yesterday, so I happen to know that that is correct. It was $105.85. We had their water read yesterday, so we could pay it at closing. But this allows you to get that municipality information. I'll tell you how accurate this is because it's that live server. Again, they just did this final water read. And so immediately it became available. We were able to give this to the title company and pay it with our proceeds at closing. So a lot of cool things by having that live server. You also have the tax information. I had a client who, just the nicest lady, her mother had passed away. She She had purchased the condo. There was just a small mortgage left on it. And she called me and she was kind of upset. She said, I really like this area. I love the condo. I really thought I would be here forever. She said, but the taxes here, they're killing me. So I met with her and, we're going through her listing paperwork, and I happened to know that I think it was between 7 or 9 thousand. And she said to me, I don't know how people can afford these taxes. And so I asked her, I said, well, this is your primary residence, right? Because these are non-homesteaded taxes. And so what happened was, by asking that question, she had never transferred the property. Well, it wasn't transferred properly, was the long story short. And so it had not been homesteaded. She was paying a lot more for taxes. So we literally went down to, it had to be Clint Township, I think. We went down to the township office together, and she's now a client for life. She ended up, after they said, you know what, no problem. Yes, he should have been homesteaded. She got, I think, 30% of those taxes waived. And so she was so happy, and she still ended up selling, which was good. But she was so happy she did become a client for life. And it's those extra services that you offer by simply asking that question. We figured out how to solve her problem. So a lot of that stuff you can do right from that BSNA record. Okay, so again, 2 quick shortcuts to get to that information. The other thing I want to quickly show you is where you can find those fast stats. Remember, we want to educate that seller on what's going on in the market, and so that she knows why we may be placing her on the high side. Fast Stats, which is one of my favorite tools, you're going to find right under your resources. So you're simply going to log into Paragon. You're going to go to resources, and you're going to find this under social media and lead gen, and it's called Market Stats. Again, when you click on Market Stats, right at the top is, I call it the easy button. Right up here is the Fast Stats button. And this is, if you're like me, you want to just quickly show them what's going on. So I'm going to click on Fast Stats. I'm going to click on the county that I want to generate the stats for. And then I'm going to simply click on the city name of where I'm going on my listing appointment. It's that easy. Once I do that, it creates that same graph. And it's really interesting because we just saw that it was down almost 40%. Now we've seen a little bit more climbing back onto the market, and you can see it's kind of balancing out our average sales price. So a lot of really interesting things, but I wanted to show you how simply easy it is. It's literally 2 clicks. It generates those stats. I generally just print them out as a PDF or save them to your desktop, and that way you can quickly pull them right into your CMA report. Okay, so that's where I got those other pieces, because I think knowing where to start to do your homework, to know how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, what that square footage is, that's really the starting point. All right, so now we've got all of our details. Now we're ready to find those comparables. So now we're going to go into Paragon. We're going to do our search. By the way, you can search for almost anything. I was really amazed, when I started working at my Real Source, how much more there was in Paragon that I never even used, right? You get in the habit of clicking on a certain thing over and over again. But of course, when you do your searches, this is where you can find other saved property searches. You can find your inventory. Maybe you got a sign call and it's Joe Fumagali's listing, and you want to be able to just pull him up really quick and find all his listings to find the one they're sitting in front of. You can also pull how much inventory you've sold. You can do hot sheets from here. So much that you can actually search for under that search icon. But today, obviously, we're searching for comps. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to do a residential search because that's obviously what that home was. And now we're going to start typing in our criteria. Obviously, we're looking for a single family home. If you're new to Paragon and you're maybe just getting familiar with it, if you don't know what a particular field in your search is looking for, remember, you can always go right over here to the right. If you click on that magnifying glass, that's going to show you all of the options. So this particular field is just asking for, are you looking for condo comps? Are you looking for single family home comps? Are you comping on a farm? They just want to know what you're looking for. So in this case, we're going to do single family. Your search, by the way, may look slightly different than mine. As you can see, I just taught a class recently in Detroit, And they were saying, we have to search by zip code. Detroit is so big and so expansive. A lot of times having that zip code field in there was very helpful for them. So remember that the nice thing about Paragon is that you can customize what fields are here, and you can also customize where they fall in your search. The last thing you want to have to do is basically scroll down every time you're trying to do a search. So don't be afraid to customize your search, to put all the things you search for very commonly right up here at the top. And if there's something that you think would be helpful, I guarantee we have a field for it. There's thousands and thousands of fields, more than I could ever even begin to explain. But if there is something that you think, you know what, there has to be a better way to search this area, or there has to be, we have free tech support that is available for all of our partnered MLSs as well as My Real Source members. And you can reach them 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And we will literally walk you through finding that specific field, adding it to your search, and even helping you customize your search so it falls maybe in an order that is a little easier so you're not always scrolling down to the bottom. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to jump down. So we know we're looking for a single family home. I don't want a bunch of leases because I just want to tell the seller what their home is going to sell for. Now, the big thing is, what are we looking for? Well, when you're doing a CMA, the numbers are always derived from closed. That's the one that really matters, right? So I'm going to click that magnifying glass and I'm going to say, I definitely want solds. But in a changing market, we also want to see, is there a lot pending? Because maybe the ones pending are pending at a higher list price. I want to be able to see that to see where we're trending, right? So I'm also going to include those pending. And for me, I also like to include actives. Now, really, the number itself is always being derived from solds, right? That's the most important. However, if you're sitting at someone's kitchen table, they're going to assume you've seen every home in their sub that's on the market. So you want to be able to have that in your CMA to at least show them. So I want to have actives, I want to have solds, and I also want to have pendings. If we were in a flip market and you were trying, let's say your homeowner said, you know what, I know, Colleen, you're saying that we should list at 300,000, but we want to try 375. If we were in a different market, you might even want to include one overpriced expired. This was a trick I learned many years ago from Floyd Wickman. And what he basically said was, if you know right off the bat that they're going to want to overprice their home and it's a buyer's market, not a seller's market, in that case, you may want to give them an example of someone who listed way too high and has been on the market for 370 days, let's say, and they haven't sold. Now they've got 3 price reductions and the home is kind of a stale listing, right? So you can always include something like that as well. For today's market, we're going to do active, sold, and pending so we can give them a conclusive look. Now, I'm just going to be honest, I know Brian gets mad when I say this sort of stuff, but I hate these MLS calendars. If I'm really going to do what an appraiser is going to do in this area, we're going to go 6 months back. So don't make me use the little calendars and click on the days and then click, 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 click 6 months forward and then click, click. And I just hate that. So you can just use that drop down, hit 6 months back because that's what an appraiser is going to do here, right? This is where I would go in and I would add in things like if there's a lot on the market, I may want to start limiting it down to maybe if it's a ranch, maybe I want to put that it's a 1-story and I'm looking for other 1-stories. How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? Does it have a basement? So really just putting in that home criteria. So I'm going to say, yes, this home does have a basement. Yes, it does have a garage. If you have too many comps, remember you can also add in things like it's an attached garage. But for a little tip, in this market, it's a little challenging to get comps. So we certainly don't want to eliminate the ones we got. So in this market, I'm not going to put attached garage because I'd like to see as much inventory as I can. There's certainly not a lot on the market at this point. So I want to see everything that I can. So basically I'm going in, I'm starting to filter in my criteria. But of course, what is the most important thing in real estate? It's location, location, location. So in this area, what would an appraiser do? They would want to find a home And again, this might be different if you're in rural areas, but for this particular area in Clinton Township, there is a lot of homes, and they're going to find comps within 1 mile of that subject property. Now, if you're in more rural areas, like the report I did this morning, the CMA I did this morning, again, you may have to go out 5 miles. Most appraisers tell me they don't like to go outside of the 5 miles unless it's if it's real farm country and there's, it's cornfield, 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 and no house. Sometimes they have to, but you have to really try to keep it as tight as you can. In this area, it's definitely going to be 1 mile. So I'm going to go into my search by map here. And I'm going to do exactly what an appraiser is going to do. So when your search opens, you're going to notice it opens to your office location. Now you can customize that if you're working somewhere else quite often in your preferences. You can customize where you want your map to open. But in this case, the easiest thing for me to do to get that 1 mile radius of where that home is, I like to go right up to this little field here. And I want to type in, I'm going to use this one because it's got some good examples. I want to type in the address and comma the city. So in this case, I'm going to use my 41539 Wessel Drive. You want to leave off the drives, the ways, the places, the avenues, because this is using Google Maps. If you put too much information or if it's spelled differently, it doesn't always come out perfect. I find less is best. Put in the route, street name, comma, the city, and I promise it'll pop right up for you. So what you want to do is you want to type in, again, this was Wessel Drive, but I'm simply typing in 41539 Wessel, comma, Sterling Heights. I'm now going to click on that search, and it's going to locate that map right away for me. So now I found where the house is, but now what I want to do, and it's going to show me things like schools and other area things, and look, there's a little park and a little Clinton River right here. However, now I want to find that 1 mile radius. So I'm going to go right up to the top here, and I'm going to say I want to see all the comps within 1 mile. So now I'm going to search that radius, and you're going to see it's going to draw that circle right on our map. And when I first looked at this, I was a little confused. I'm like, okay, so I get this is a house. I get it's pending, this purple flag over here to the left. I can see that. But what are these numbers? Well, these numbers are just that the homes were very close to one another. And so instead of trying to get to the flag that's buried underneath the other flag, this kind of clusters them for you. So if I click on that circle with the 5 in it, it's going to show me all 5 of those comps without me trying to fight to get to that other flag. Or you could simply just zoom out and it would work that way as well. So here's another little tip. If you are listing a property, and let's say it's like 2 hours away. Let's say it's like this one in Rose City, it happens to be 3 hours away. So sometimes I kind of want to see what the neighborhood looks like before I drive all the way up there. I kind of want to have, is it in a subdivision? Is it not in a subdivision? You kind of want to know before you get there what you're going to be looking at. So here's another tip. And I know we see this on everything, but for the longest time, I didn't know it was here. If you grab this little yellow Google man over here and you drag him in front of, let's say, your that little listing flag where you're going to be listing, you can actually walk down the street and you can actually see the pinned property, which is going to be my listing appointment tonight. But this allows you to see the neighbor to the right. You can see the neighbor to the left. I can literally walk down. I can see that this is on a cul-de-sac right here. So I can literally tour the neighborhood. And by the way, if you use the Collab Center, if you're working with buyers, they can do this right from their phones, right from their tablets or their computer, whatever they're using to search in the Collab Center. It's a really easy way to sort of check out the neighborhood without having to drive 2.5 hours away to maybe get a photo or maybe check out the neighborhood. Really easy way to kind of do that right from your computer. All right, so now we've got our radius. Couple other really cool things that you can do here that I didn't know for a long time is if you are doing a CMA. So let's say you've got your 1 mile radius, but let's say, for instance, you are listing a house that's a brick ranch and it's in a little neighborhood But let's say that you notice that Rick Luce has a bunch of $1 million waterfront listings. Okay, so we're excited for Rick. He's got, let's say five $1 million listings on the water, but you're listing a little traditional brick ranch several streets away. That obviously is going to really screw up your CMA numbers because you're not a waterfront listing. So, how could you very quickly and easily remove that waterfront area so that it doesn't mess up your listings or you don't have to go back in and deselect a lot of listings? Here's a little easy tip. If you go to your drawing over here, which is where you can create a shape on your map, and I happen to like the polygon. I think it's the easiest to use. And I'm going to say, although I'm really excited about, we'll pretend these four right here are going to be those $1 million waterfront listings. So although I'm really happy he's got those $1 million, I don't want it messing up my CMA, and I don't want to have to go through 20 listings and deselect half of them. So what I want to do is I literally am drawing a shape on my shape. The next thing I want to do, one last step, is I now want to, instead of including that shape, so you see those four right here, I want to simply exclude it. So any of that waterfront area doesn't mess up my numbers. It allows me to literally just say, I just want to show the things that would be off the water, so I don't have to go back in and deselect all those waterfronts. Okay, so just a quick tip. Sometimes if you're doing a subdivision where maybe half of it's new construction, had this happen to me recently. Half was new construction and half was built in 1930. Well, the new construction homes were worth so much more. And I wanted to literally go in and cut off the area where the new construction started or where the old construction started and make sure that I was doing apple to apple comparisons. It was all within that 1 mile, but I didn't want to include a bunch of houses. Now, you could do that also by year built. But this was easier for me. I knew right where the subdivision was. You can change your maps. You can really zoom in. You can even do the overhead. And you could clearly see where the new construction started. And that was the numbers that I wanted to focus on for my CMA. So really easy ways to do that. One of the enhancements that Paragon made that I love is the fact that you can be doing a map search, but you can also go back and adjust your criteria. So if you have too many comps or you don't have enough comps, you can always go back to these tabs right here, the criteria tab, and you can add in more. Now, how many are you really looking for? Well, 3 to 5 closed comps is really what you're looking for. And if you give them 10 comps, you're going to overwhelm them and you're going to be talking about, your CMA for 3 hours. If you only give them one, sometimes that's hard. Now, sometimes you can only provide one, unfortunately. It just depends on, their location. But really what you're shooting for is around 3 to 5 comps, because that's going to give you a good story of exactly what that home is worth. So I'm going to go back in and just fill in a little bit of information here. I'm going to say that this home is 3 bedrooms, so we're going to do 3 to 4. Again, you'd put in things like how many bathrooms, does it have a garage? I generally, in this market, don't use the features because in this market, we want to see all available listings that we can use and accurately have as a comp. So I'm going to kind of pass by those, but I do want to go down to square footage. So how square footage works, and a lot of, if you're an appraiser or you have friends that are appraisers, they'll tell you generally it's a 20% square footage rule. Are there times where they have to break that out in rural areas? Yes. Sometimes if again, there's no other comps to go by, they will take into account, and then sometimes they will add or reduce based on that amount. But really, in an area like this, they're going to be using that 20% square footage rule. So in this case, let me grab my phone here. They have this home listed as 1,361 square feet. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to go into your calculator and you're going to find out what is the 20% of that square footage. And it works out to be 272. So you're going to take that 272 number and you're going to add it to the top. So I'm going to take that 272 and I'm going to add it to my 1361, which is the square footage, and I get around 1,600 square feet. So that's going to be the max square footage. That gives me that 20% rule. If again, if I'm doing it the opposite way and I take that 272 off, I'm looking at about 1100 square feet. So my square footage range is really going to be from 1100 to 1600 square feet. At least that's where I'm going to start. And I'm going to try, of course, to find comps that are going to be close to that as I can. Keep in mind, you're also going to consider things like school district. That's huge. There is an area over here that has 4 different school districts in it. And believe it or not, it really makes a big difference. Like Growth Point North, for instance, that makes a big difference, that school. And looking at that school district or looking at that school, you're going to try to stay as close as possible. All right. So I'm not going to put too much more in here because I want to show you how to get all these great comps into Cloud CMA easily. So I'm going to run my search with what we have. Now I'm going to be honest, I have a little OCD. So when it comes back all jumbled like this, it makes me crazy. So I like to sort the classes so that I can see how many active do we have, because we're shooting between 3 and 5, right? So up here, I can see the average list, the average sold, but let's face it, some of these are certainly going to be outliers. You know, you've got maybe $1 million home, we're going to actually go through and we're going to actually take a look, making sure the square footage matches. We're going to take a look at some of those common things like, is it an attached garage? But I can see very clearly we have an ABO, an accepting backup offer. We have an active. We've got enough closed that we can actually go through and probably find a pretty good comp for this home. But we can also go in and we can see things like how many we have pending. But I also generally will put in things like I might have a year built. If it's new construction, you might select that. So there's some other criteria that you would add in because, again, you're trying to get apples to apples. In this case, I would really want to go through these, 9 comps, and I would want to find the ones that are certainly going to be the most like my home, shooting for 3 to 5. For the sake of time, so I don't keep you here forever, looks like we got a duplicate on that one, so we'll skip that. All right, so I'm just going to grab a couple just for the sake of our time here. Again, my OCD brain says, okay, that looks like a mess. How do we sort that? So you can always select the ones you want, hit check right up here at the top. Now you're just looking for those particular comps that you've selected. We don't have all that other gobbledygook on the page, right? We've just got our comps that we know are going to be like our particular listing. So now we've got those selected. Keep in mind that you can add a field if you need to here. Mine may look a little bit different than yours. And what I've done is I've added the listing agent. You know, doing this 25 years, you know a lot of the listing agents that you've worked with. And so if I see a particular listing agent that, you know, I've worked with, I might have a question. I might want to be able to reach out about that particular listing. Like, why did you get so much more? Why didn't you get what the other houses were going to? And a lot of times they'll give me the story on the home. So I like to be able to see that when I am looking at my search results. This is another case where our support can walk you through, but it's really as simple as going to customize and adding in the listing agent. And that's going to show right on your display then. So now we've got our comps all selected. How do we easily, and I call this the easy button, how do we easily get those into our Cloud CMA report? The next key is right under, it's kind of hidden in plain sight, if you will, but where you see this little plug actions button, it's kind of like that button we showed you in the beginning where it does something really great, takes you into another program for this specific example. So in this case, we're going to go to actions and we're going to select Cloud CMA. By the way, there's a buyer tour in here. If you're showing buyers and you want to create a nice little buyer tour for them, you could do that. But really, for today's example, we're going to do Cloud CMA. We're going to create a CMA for what we've selected. We do have another Cloud CMA class, and it's called Beyond CMAs. And what it does is it allows us to take you in things like the buyer tour, creating flyers. Cloud really is so robust. It also has a lead generation tool built in it. where you can actually post on a social media. And I've gotten a ton of leads myself off of it. I have to tell you, it's a very, very cool tool. And all of those are in our Beyond CMAs class, which we do have coming up later on this month. All right, so if I want to send all of these over into cloud, I can do that with one click. I want to show you one more thing before we do that, though. Let's say in this case that Betty, who's on our call, let's say Betty just got a call from her brother. And her brother said, you know what, Betty, I just, could you just, you don't have to put anything fancy together. I'm already going to list with you. Just kind of want to know what we should list it for. So Betty doesn't need the whole fancy presentation, right? She just wants to tell her brother what he should put his house up for. So if you go over to reports, you're going to find a CMA folder. By the way, there are all different reports. If you've never played with this, there's tons of different reports you can choose from. However, if you click on that CMA folder, let's say that Betty just wanted to show her brother kind of a side-by-side comparison. You could do that in the quick view. You can stack those properties up side by side, and you can add whatever field. So maybe her brother has acreage. So she wants to add that acreage field in here so that she's showing all of the properties, and it's showing acreage of each one across that line. So it makes it really easy to do a very quick view. But maybe he's just trusting Betty. He says, I don't need to see anything, Betty. Just show me what we should, or just tell me what we should list for. So Betty, for her own knowledge, she just wants to kind of have that spreadsheet of what should it be listed for. Again, right under that report section, you'll find that CMA folder, and you'll find the CMA summary. This is a summary of the properties that you've selected, and what you can see is it's actually showing you the solds versus the pending. It's breaking down that price per square foot, what the average square footage was, the asking price, sold price. And so if you're not looking for the wow, if you're just looking for the easy, maybe for your own knowledge or someone in your family, that may be all you're looking for. You might just be looking for, I just want to see it in a quick view, or I just want that spreadsheet. And those are there for you as well. However, if you now want to do that fancy presentation, that whole wowing my seller presentation, you're going to go to that actions button, Cloud CMA, and that's going to start that whole CMA process for you. So the cool thing about Cloud is once you do one, it creates a template. And the next time you go in, it has everything set up just the way you want it, which is you don't have to go back in and reinvent it every time. It's all set up for you. Really, all you have to do is bring in the comps. The other things are already there. So let's take a look. So we're going to say that we're setting this up for Sally and seller. You could put personal notes in. Maybe it's a referral. You want to keep track of that. And then all you're going to do is you're going to go to that subject property. And in this case, I'm going to put in my 41539. As I start to type that out, you're going to see it's quick fills. And the reason it's going to do that is many times it will actually pull from the tax records. So it'll fill out how many bedrooms, how many baths, what the square footage is. You can always change that as well. So if it doesn't auto-populate like the one you're seeing here, you can type that in, but many times it will actually feed that in here. The other thing is where it says add cover photo. If you've taken a photo, I'm going to use this little pencil one here. If you've taken a photo and you want to add that in, very easy to add that beautiful front cover shot. You can crop it. So maybe I don't want to have all that street view in there. I just want to show that beautiful green grass. You can do that as well. So really, really easy to add those in. Again, you can, sometimes they'll have like the date on them if you use like the BS&A shot. I always hate when it looks like that. So you can sort of crop that out. So I want to go ahead and crop that, and we'll make it look like that and add in our cover photo. There's also a section down here we call it the quick and dirty. I personally do not like this for CMAs. I find I spend way too much time going back in and removing all the ones that really shouldn't have been in there in the first place. First of all, appraisers don't go back 3 years. So it's just a lot of tweaking. And yes, you can tweak it from here. but I just find that I can be much more accurate doing a full and traditional CMA. Now, there is a purpose for this, though. This is great when you're using the lead gen piece that we show in that Beyond CMAs. There's a very cool lead generation tool that you can post out onto social media. You can add to your website. I have it in my signature line. So all of those things use this quick and dirty process. And for that, I love it. But when I'm actually doing a CMA for a client, I want it to be very accurate, very detailed. So Cloud works like this. There are 4 tabs across the top. The first one is literally just doing all the hard work for us. We did all the hard work in Paragon. We're just pulling those listings over into our report. And as you can see, I'm so old, I remember we used to have to type all those numbers in. And by the way, when you're talking 10, 11 digits, that's a lot. And I would always be missing something. I would always be like, there were 6 comps, I only got 4 in there. So the nice thing is it just pulls those over for you. Next, I want to go ahead and I want to now fetch those listings. So it's going to give you, the agent, another chance to review the listings that you have selected in Paragon. So basically, I'm pulling those over. And sometimes, and I kind of learned this the hard way, sometimes it's not so much the listings that you're pulling over as the order that you're putting them in. And what I mean by that is, if you have, let's say, a couple listings that maybe are lower price, maybe you don't want to start with the lowest price. I remember on a listing appointment, I kind of offended a seller because my first 2 comps were ridiculously low. And looking back at it, she's very, very proud of her home. I should have probably started with maybe the medium comp. And then worked my way into that. And so it's the order that you're presenting it into. So for instance, if I wanted Alpina to maybe be our first comp, I could drag that into the order that I wanted it. So maybe I want that to be the first comp that she sees. If I got all the way to this point and I went, oh, geez, why did I include that let's say, why did I include that 330 here? I didn't mean to include that one. You can simply deselect it here without having to start all over again. If you wanted to review a comp a little further, maybe you want to take a look at that 255 and just make sure that you do want to include it in here, you can always click on Notes and Adjustments. And I love the way they've recently changed this. They bring over the remarks from the MLS, but this is where you can add your own notes. Like maybe this home closed for less because it didn't have central air. So I could put in here no central air, or didn't have a basement, or had more acreage. But this is where you can actually include those types of notes. So you're reminded to go through them in your CMA with the seller to show them maybe why it sold for more or less. So I love that. It used to kind of incorporate it and I didn't really like it. I love that it has its own spot now so that you can go through it with the seller. You can put these in different orders too. You could put them in an order by list price. You could do by square footage, by the status, active, pending, or closed. You can also drag and drop them, just personal preference. And remember, this is something you, the agent, only see. It's kind of one last chance just to make sure you selected all the comps that you wanted. From here, if you did want to include, let's say, a price range, you could do that. Or if you wanted to give a suggested list price, I'll tell you my funny story. So there was a home, was actually in this neighborhood, and it was just a dollhouse. Like from the outside, every flower was planted in a straight row, just the shutters were painted. I mean, it was just the cutest little brick ranch you ever saw. So I had never been there. I decided I was going to one-step my listing. So I got my little CMA all ready to go, and I had printed it out. This was a little while ago. And I got to the door, and I literally, I always take my shoes off. I took my shoes off, and then I stepped onto Grover blue shag carpeting. I kid you not, from the 70s. And everywhere I looked in this house, it had those 70 wallflowers like you saw in the Brady Bunch stuck to every wall. And I was like, wow. And I know they say it's coming back, but it ain't ever coming this far back, I assure you. And so basically it needed a ton of updating. And I, of course, had not priced it for that because it was such a dollhouse from the outside. So here's me in the bathroom, literally trying to rip my suggested price out of my CMA, which I had all bound together. It was a hot mess. Now you can even do that by clicking Edit and putting in a different suggested price. So, the nice thing is you can easily fix that. You don't have to go in and hide in the bathroom and try to rip that page out like I did. You can also put your list price, your suggested list. So we're going to say maybe we're going to suggest that they list at 300,000 to 305,000. You can actually type that in and it will show that suggested list price. You can do a net sheet as well. I'm going to be honest, I do not do the net sheet here. I am not a fan of it because one, I have to figure out all the math. You can save the item names, but that's kind of a lot of work for me. I thought it was a little more work than I wanted to do. What I generally will do, and here, I'll just kind of bounce out of here for 1 second and show you. I generally will do a seller's net sheet in either zip form or transaction desk. You could even do it in .loop if you're a .loop user. I will generally do a net sheet in a forms product because it calculates all of those numbers for me. And then I just save it as a PDF and I pull it into my cloud CMA because the other way, I got to do all the math and it's a little too much. As I mentioned, I'm kind of lazy and just don't want to have to do that. So lastly is you're customizing the report. So it's basically 3 tabs. The first tab is what you're bringing over. That second tab, that listings tab, is another way to go through those listings and quickly make sure that's what you wanted. And then third is really how do you want it to look? What's important in your template? What do you want to show that homeowner? And this is the best way to think of it. Everything in this white area, this your CMA report, is what's going to be on your report when you present it. Everything over here on the left are additional items you can add in. Now, there's also things you can upsell. I tried some of the upsells. I didn't think they were that fabulous, so I don't really recommend them. I'm too cheap to usually pay money unless it's really spectacular. But this top piece, if I want to add in more photos, meaning maybe they have 99 photos in the MLS and I want all of the photos, I can bring those in. If I want more of their marketing pages, because they have tons of great marketing, like staging your home. By the way, if you're looking at that and you're like, I don't know, well, would I want that in there? You can always do a preview of it. So that preview will show you what that graph or what that page is going to look like before you add it. So maybe you wanted to, I think it was this one, intelligent pricing and timing. Maybe you wanted to show why it's important to price it correctly and you wanted to use their marketing that they've already done for you. You can kind of do a bird's eye view. And if you like it, you could hit the plus and it's simply going to float into your report. Okay, so then and by the way, once they're there, same process. You can drag and drop those into any order that you want. So if you wanted something on top, you could bring it to the top, but it allows you to put it in that order that you want to present it. Once you have all of your pages that you want to include in your report, and nobody wants to be there for 10 years, right? So you don't want a 700-page CMA report. That's why you're shooting for 3 to 5 closed comps. Now we want to just make sure that our theme represents our company colors. Here's where you can choose how you want the actual properties laid out. Remember, I said if you are printing it, you might want them all stacked up in 4 columns. I happen to like the photo with max data. That's my favorite. So that's the layout that I chose for my comps. You can also then save it as a template. So if you like how this looks, it will automatically save the order. But maybe you want to save it and you want to call it Brian's Awesome Listing CMA, whatever you want to call it. And you can actually save that template. So the next time you're doing one, you can simply apply that. So if you are on a team or you have some marketing pages, things like that, you can actually have all that saved in your template, just apply it and you're good to go. Again, it will automatically save what you create as your first, but if you've got something maybe you want to make more detailed, great. And they do give you some examples, like there's an appraisal template, there's every time I teach a class, I think I get a different name in here, but if you click on built-in, you can see there's a buyer CMA, a follow-up report, a pre-listing package, an appraiser report, and then of course, custom is going to be all the ones that you create. So just keep that in mind. It makes it that much easier. Do be sure to check your theme. You certainly don't want to, let's say you're with Remax, you don't want to show up with the Century 21 colors, right? So you can click on that theme and you can choose your company colors. Remax actually has some beautiful custom pages that they've done, as well as Real Estate One. So you do want to go through and see if your franchise is in there, and that way you can have that beautiful looking report. They have some beautiful pages that they've created from their marketing team. Okay, last, that is really it. You have done all of the hard work for your CMA. Remember, if there's something in your report that you do want to remove, you simply hit the little minus button. If there's something you want to add, you're going to hit that plus. It's going to float over and you can maneuver it anywhere in your CMA you want. The last button is publish. And really what you should think of that is that's your save button. Once you hit publish, that's how you're going to save your CMA. It does take about 20 seconds to populate all of that information. And then you're going to be able to open it up. You can present it in several different ways. When we started today, I showed you the PDF version. So I'm kind of go back. The PDF version, pop it open real quick so you can see it, is just that. It's a PDF that you can save to your computer. Maybe you just want to open it up on your tablet. You can display it however you want. I like to kind of, when I'm going through it, I like to usually use that full screen mode so they can see that whole page, but it's just the PDF version. The new interactive version is great if you're looking to add a little more detail and work a little more at the table. So let me kind of show you that. So we created our CMA. Now, when we go back into Cloud, so I'm just click on our CMA button here in Cloud, that's going to have all of the CMAs that I've previously done here. If I want to look at my Sally Ann Seller in that PDF version, I'm going to literally click on PDF and it's going to open it in that version. However, the live version is the one that I said allows you to be a little more interactive, meaning you can make changes right at the table while you're talking to your seller. So it works like this. Under the hamburger stack at the left, you can, let's say that you were going to present this via Zoom, or maybe you wanted to present it via Teams or Skype or Screen or Google Hangout. You can actually pick your streaming service and you could present it. So if they're not standing next to you, you can still go through it with them. You can add things like video custom resumes to this. It does accept video files. It's got some really cool things that you can do there as well. But what I like the most is really found in the comps section. The comp section is what we've always wanted it to do, right? It very quickly highlights if there's an additional bathroom or an additional bedroom, and it uses the subject property to base that off of. So I can quickly see there's 3 bedrooms, there's 2 bathrooms, the one that's closest, the one that's most expensive. But let's use that scenario we talked about before. Let's say that you're actually sitting at the kitchen table with Joe Schmagegi, and Joe Schmagegi says, well, Colleen, I see the comps that you're showing me, but you said you did this 3 days ago, and Fumagalli over there, he now says that he closed yesterday, and he lives on the corner of Trotters and Shaner here. How do I see that? Because most of the time, let's face it, it's that house was a colonial and you're sitting in a ranch, so you wouldn't have chose that as a good comp, right? So it allows you to open up that map. And I could say, well, actually, the reason right over here is that Trotter's Lane. I can show him, well, the reason I didn't choose that is that's 2,600 square feet and you're 1,100. Or this is a 2-story and you're a ranch. It at least allows me to have that conversation of why I may not have selected that as a good comp. The other thing, if this was a good comp and I wanted to immediately add it to my CMA, that's of course going to change the numbers. But what I want to do that is on the fly. So I'm going to include this comp by just toggling that on. And now I have actually included that in my comparisons. So now as I scroll through my comps, that one, as I get through is now added right to our end right here, as you can see. And clearly that's the most expensive by about 2 times. So you can also go into stats and break it down that way. If you need to deselect a particular property, you can do that as well. It's allowing us to do what we couldn't do before and seeing why we didn't select a comp or adding a comp that we may have missed, or maybe it, again, closed yesterday and you did your CMA being all prepped 2 days ago. It allows you to be able to work a little more on the fly. All right. So that is Cloud CMA. I want to show you one last thing, and that is how to add those custom pages in. As I mentioned, if you've got tax records, if you've got maybe you want to bring in some information about the home, maybe it's a survey, something like that. You want to bring those items into your CMA to sort of address them. Really easy to do that. You're going to go over in your cloud account, which I'm going to show you exactly where that is in Paragon, but right over here to the right where you see my photo, you're going to see custom pages. There are some that they've created for you that you can simply edit or change slightly. So maybe you want to go in and do an agent resume. They give you a whole template that you can go in, add links into. Again, you can add videos into it and make it exactly what you want. But maybe you're on a team and you've got some great marketing already. You can literally, again, pull in an MLS listing ticket from when it previously closed. I had one right here. It was kind of a funny story. This home was in really, really bad shape. They had renters in there for quite some time, and the carpet was just, it was not pretty. But the gentleman who bought it had never, he was actually out of the country. He had never seen the house. And of course, he calls me and he says, Colleen, I hear you're getting record prices for properties over there. I want to get that on the market right away. And the number he threw out, I almost passed out because I'm like, oh my gosh, there's just no way. So what I did is I ended up going to take photos, and I included those photos, and that there was no C of O, and I took pictures of the carpet that was all badly, they obviously had animals in there for quite some time, and the cupboards were ripped off the walls, and I just put that in my CMA so that I could go through that with them. So how do you add things like the BSNA record, those great market stats that we talked about? All you do, I've got quite a few in here, but all you do is go down to the bottom. You won't have to go quite as far. I should delete some of these out of here. You're going to go down to the bottom and you're going to click upload PDF. And then all you're going to do is find where you're pulling that from. So I'm going to say I'm going to upload my addendum. Maybe it's a property flyer, whatever it happens to be. I'm going to upload that, and now I can add that into any CMA. So I can open up my CMA that we just did, and I could add that document in. So let's actually do that. So let's go into our Sally Seller. We're going to say we want to add that custom document in. I'm going to go ahead and hit edit. That's where we're going to customize it with that outside document. So I'm going to hit that customize tab. I'll go right to my custom pages. And now everything that I have in there, it's always going to be the last one because I just brought that one in. So I'm going to add in that addendum. And as you can see, it just floated that right into my report. And now, of course, I can move that anywhere in my CMA report that I want it to be. So pretty easy. Now, by now, I know what you're thinking. Oh my gosh, this is so much. And I've probably totally overwhelmed you, and I get that. It's one of those products when you go in and you use it 2 or 3 times, it's very intuitive. But what we did is, just in case you're doing this at, let's say, 11 o'clock tomorrow night, and you just need to kind of have a little help getting through from A to B, we actually recorded this class today. And I'm going to show you where you can find it. We record all of our classes with the exception of the new agent and new admin class. And you can find all of those under resources in Paragon. So let's say you wanted to go back to this class, you want to see that part about adding custom pages. All you're going to do is go to resources, recorded webinars, and that's going to take you right to our YouTube page. This is where you can find all of the classes from Public Records, the Collaboration Center, using Cuba Casa, the new floor plan app, Transaction Desk. They're all in here, as well as Cloud CMA. And it will have today's date, so you'll know the exact class that you attended. Also in Paragon, yes.
We had a good question. It's not quite CMA, I believe, related, but kind of like that next step after they get the listing from doing the CMA. How do they get that listing out there on the social media and stuff like that? Would you be willing to show the single property website quick action link real quick?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And by the way, Taylor, and thanks for asking that. She does a phenomenal photography class showing you how to take great pictures of your listing. She also teaches social media, and we have a class that we do together called the Listing A to Z class. So after you've got the listing, we'll show you then how to put it in. Taylor will show you how to take great photos, how to add captions and descriptions and how to take it to that next level. And she'll even show you how to promote it out onto social media. I'm going to show you mine. Once you create that listing, so once you've got your listing in Paragon, we have what's called the single property website. You can even include branded tours here, which is very unique, meaning you can give your phone number and your contact information as long as it's in that branded spot. So when you use this, they can see more even about you. I love the way it makes the home look, and whether they're on their phones as a buyer. You can see my photos are not near what Taylor's are, but it was a beautiful house, so it was a little easier. But this allows you to share it out onto social media. Very easy to share too, by the way. And when they're looking at it, just close that out. When they're looking at it on their phones, they can go through those high resolution photos. As we scroll down, it'll tell you more about the property. It'll, kind of give you just the cliff notes too, so that if they're looking for something particular, they can find it right away. If the agent has multiple listings, down at the bottom, it'll show the agent's other listings. So maybe that's not the right one for them, but maybe they would like one of the other homes that you have listed. On their phones, obviously, they can be connected to you immediately by just clicking on the phone number that's listed there. There's a QR code so they can share it with others. So I'm a huge fan. And Taylor she's actually one of the people who really designed the look of this and made it work so well for our members. And then to share it out, whether you're going to tweet it out or put it on Pinterest or email it to someone, super simple. You're just going to click on those share buttons. And oops, I logged into Facebook here. But I can quickly share it to Facebook. Again, we can tweet it out. We can put it on Pinterest. And if you're an office admin, maybe you want to share it to an office page or a business page. So it allows you to pick who you want to share it with, which pages you want to share it with. Maybe I want to, if you want to test it out so you can see how it looks first before anybody else, you can even pick only me and share it to your page so you can kind of see how it's going to look ahead of time. So I think it's making it easier to share your listings right from that single property website. And again, how we got there was right off that little check link right there, that single property website, and I can go ahead and share it from there. Any other questions, Taylor?
I believe that was it.
Okay.
It needed to be, be shown. So, but yeah, you did a great job. I think everybody followed along really well. So, but if you guys do have any other questions, you can always reach out. And I did post that YouTube playlist link to all of our playlists.
Awesome. And then classes are back. This is actually the first class for the summer classes. So if you're looking for, and we have classes on everything, as I mentioned, Taylor does a phenomenal job with her photography classes, social media, listing A to Z. And she just developed a class that we started teaching that's been a huge success called Tackling Low Inventory. The tools that you need to be able to pick up new leads, and especially new listing leads. So all of our classes are listed. Let me show you how we got there. We got in Paragon. Under resources, there is the education corner. Every quarter we go in and we actually place all the new classes there. It's kind of like an online digital catalog, if you will. But let's say you're looking for that class on low inventory. All you're going to do is you're going to go down to that class, click on register. It'll take you to where you can register. And then all of those classes, again, are recorded on our YouTube video. So I think I made it only 1 minute over. I think that was pretty good. I should also mention there are cheat sheets in your GoToWebinar panel. I forgot to mention that. If you're like me and you just want a little checklist that you can sort of go through when you're in a hurry, in your GoToWebinar panel, right under where the questions were, there is a handout section. There are 4 handouts in there. I included the one for lead generation. There's some ones on full-blown cloud, adding custom pages. If you go there and you save them to your computer, you can email them. They're just PDFs. You can email them and you can use them at any time. So Taylor and Brian, I wanted to thank you so much. Thanks for helping with all those questions today. I know we had a really good turnout, and I certainly couldn't have manned the questions and gone all through that in an hour and a half.
You're welcome. Great job.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Happy selling. Go get some listings so we can build up that inventory. Sell, sell, sell.